Today we are talking about proposals for freelancers. I dug deep into my archive and I found 15 proposals that I wrote between 2015 and 2018 when I was a freelancer. Now, these don't include the contract or agency work that I did. These are all clients that I either went out and found or they found me through a referral. They found me somehow, and I met with them first, and then this was the proposal to win the business. So they hadn't committed yet to actually hiring me. You are going to see that my style of proposal is a very simple document. I wrote all of my proposals like a memorandum. I didn't design multi-page, multi-layout type proposals because honestly, those just looked like a lot of work and I hadn't actually been hired yet to do anything. So I got into branding and design and things like that as part of the discovery process after I had been hired and after I had been paid to start working. You're not going to see any of that here. I understand why big agencies with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line do those very detailed, highly designed type proposals, but I think at this scale for one freelancer who's out working with other small businesses, I think what I'm about to show you is more than enough. And I did everything in Word. I used Word docs. In fact, I'll go ahead and set up a Google Doc as like a template, and I'll link that down below. If you want to go check out the Google Doc or make a copy for yourself, you're welcome to do so. All of the proposals that I show you today have been redacted. So I took out all of the sensitive, proprietary, confidential information, and I put them in a GitHub repository. I'll leave that link down below as well. You're more than welcome to go and check out the GitHub repository. If there's anything here that you think you can use in terms of language, formatting, anything like that, you're welcome to it, and I'm happy to share it with you. So let's get started. And in our first proposal, you're going to notice that I probably put way too much information in here. Like in the beginning, the earliest part of my career, I was giving away a lot of strategy in the proposal phase, and that's really meant for a scope of work. You shouldn't be giving away so much of your strategy and how you would execute the job until after you've been hired and you've been paid. And I've been burned a couple of times. I've had to learn that the hard way. Now with this particular proposal, it didn't come back to bite me. He hired me immediately, and this is still a client of mine. We have a great relationship. I basically outlined the structure of the current site. I don't think I did that for any other redesigns, but I felt obviously compelled to do that here. So maybe I did that mostly for myself. I outlined the structure and what the navigation was. And then I go into the proposal part where really I'm thanking them for meeting with me, because having a face-to-face meeting with a prospective client I think is incredibly important, but also I'm confirming that I understand what it is that they asked for, or that at a very minimum I understand what the pain point is, and that I'm explaining that I have a solution. So I've reviewed the current structure of your website as a user, and I think using the power of WordPress custom post types and taxonomies, we can easily rebuild this site. Yeah, I don't like using the word easily anymore. That's come back to bite me a few times too. First, we need to take a different approach to the memberships. A membership is simply restricting access to content. Yeah, so all of this is really detailed strategy, and it worked well for me in this instance, but I would say don't put this much detailed strategy in your proposals, because what I've had happen, it only happened to me twice before I figured it out, is if you put all of your strategy in the proposal, they will just take your ideas and they'll either do it themselves or they'll find somebody cheaper and they'll ask them to do it. So don't give them a roadmap. Really, this is the part of the proposal where you should be restating what you understand the problem to be. Let's see if there's actually anything in here that does that. So the last paragraph I think is a great example, because I do remember him saying to me that he had a very specific type of look or feel that he wanted for his website. And lynda.com is now LinkedIn Learning, but at the time he said, you mentioned a lynda.com like experience, and that can be achieved in WordPress using custom post types and taxonomies. This method also relies on using YouTube to host your videos, which you're already doing, and is a very smart way to continue handling this. We should also move the videos you want available as downloads to the video pages in addition to the webinar page. So I'm basically restating what he currently has, acknowledging what it is that he would like to do moving forward, and providing a solution. My process is that once I'm hired, I do wireframes and a style guide. So whether that is a style guide with their current brand, or they need help updating the brand, or they need a new brand altogether, I do those at the same time. Then I go from wireframes to a full color comp for desktop and mobile. I actually really didn't do full wireframes for mobile. I would maybe do one or two, if any. I found that clients actually didn't care about that. They didn't demand to see wireframes for a mobile experience. So I think more towards the end, I didn't really do that. Custom build out, HTML5, CSS, CSS3, and jQuery, the good old days jQuery. I don't usually talk about languages like that anymore either. Custom WordPress theme, which is what this was. I did build a custom WordPress theme, and then QA, modifications, and edits. So that's a really good way to detail what the actual process is. Now, what I do differently, well, you'll see in the next few proposals here what I started doing differently. And then time frame and cost. You have to include this in every single proposal. You have to be very clear about the time that you think it's going to take and what your terms are for getting paid. And this time required 120 hours over 4 to 6 weeks. I don't really do hours anymore either. I usually just put a date range on the calendar of when I'll be working on things. And then for the process, I would actually map out which weeks they can expect which deliverables. That is what I eventually started doing. I looked at this and I couldn't believe it. I didn't know that I only charged him $4,200 for this. If this proposal timeframe and cost are acceptable, please let me know as soon as possible so we can schedule this project. I wouldn't even put something on the calendar until I had been paid. I will send you an estimate and invoice for the first payment, and I do have software where I would send an invoice. I have availability in my calendar beginning November 16th. You can also view my project terms for more information about my process and how I work, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to see in future proposals that I really, really modified this, but I have to tell you, this job went great. I didn't have any problems with this job, which is probably why it took me a couple of proposals before I had to really start modifying how I do things, because I had no problems with him. He's still my client and I still really love working with him. Also, this is probably a good indication of why I didn't do so well as a freelancer, because clearly I do not charge enough, and you're also going to see that in future proposals. So let's move to the next one. This is July 18th, 2016. And this is, oh yeah, so this was a tough one. This one did not go as well as the last one. This is somebody who had a directory listing website where I think people could sign up for free, but they could pay for a more premium type directory listing. And this is one that I really got in over my head on this one. So this is actually a pretty good proposal though, so let's read through this. And she had a website already. So we were moving into WordPress, but I gave her options for how much she wanted to move into WordPress, or if she wanted to keep parts of her website as is and just have me build out the directory. So the following is a 2-option proposal to move your website to WordPress. Option 1, convert the homepage, navigation, and testimonials to WordPress. Here I'm restating what she currently has. You have a static homepage and navigation that will remain static under the original scope of work. This option converts the homepage to WordPress and adds the ability to edit content, headlines, buttons, blah, blah, blah. The layout of the homepage will not be editable, meaning you will not be able to reorder and move sections around the page or change the color of buttons and sections. So basically, keeping it static, I would still do updates to the homepage and like sort of give it a refreshed, updated look. But a static web page means if you don't have access to it, you can't move things around or update things. And that was the whole point of this, was that if I rebuilt that homepage in WordPress, she would be able to do that. This option also moves the navigation to WordPress, which gives you a complete control over top level and submenu structure, including flyouts or a third level of navigation, which she kind of did want. And then also she wanted to build out a testimonials section. So this option doesn't change the original scope of work, but rather builds on it. Additional costs. I think I had written a proposal and then she asked me for another option with different pricing, like different things she could choose from. And incredibly, I was only going to charge her $500 for this. Extends the timeline to September 1st, 2016. So this is crucial. Anytime any client asks you to do additional work or asks you to quote a price for additional work or extend the additional work, it's time and it's money. It's both. It's not just money, and if you're not extending the timeline, they have to pay for that privilege to get the extra work done in the same time frame. But the conversation to do additional work or provide an additional proposal always has to include extending the timeline and increasing the cost. Those conversations have to happen. And so here was option 2, move the entire site, including the directory listings, to WordPress. So this option changes the entire scope of work. Moving the site to WordPress means we start fresh with a new theme and custom design. This option should be really thought of as a semi-custom design where we design a custom homepage, then we take a pre-made theme and apply branding and style elements. So this is just enough detail without really giving away the strategy of how I would do that, right? So proposals need to sort of walk the line of, let me tell you how I'm going to do this work, but I'm not going to like completely lay it out for you. And I think that's actually a pretty good paragraph to articulate that. This option is for those who want custom design work but don't require custom theme building or programming. While you will still require some custom programming like the testimonials, listings, and membership subscription capabilities, WordPress has a diverse ecosystem of plugins that handle this functionality really well, which is true. This option includes the homepage, navigation, testimonials. So this is just additional functionality that I'm listing, but again, I'm not saying how we do it. I'm just acknowledging that this is what she asked for and this is what we can do. And I had originally proposed using this plugin called Business Directory Plugin, and I won't bury the lead. This job went on for months. I mean, this was July 2016. This extended well into 2017. I was in way over my head with this. I didn't do a good job once I did write the scope of work, really understanding what it took to build a directory listing website. I just didn't fully understand what that meant. So I can't blame the client because I fell short in what I understood that type of functionality to be and how detailed of a job that was going to be. And I was just, as a programmer, in way over my head. So I originally proposed this plugin and it didn't work. It didn't do what we needed it to do or what she wanted it to do. This is where I also sort of get into more details. And 8 years ago, SSL certificates were still something that a lot of people had to buy separately from their domain providers. It's not like now where it is mostly open source and people can install them on the server without paying extra, but this was like a huge cash cow for hosting providers. I mean, I remember GoDaddy 8-9 years ago was charging like $50, $60, $70 for an SSL certificate, and those are free now on the server. But it's also worth pointing out that a lot of websites didn't have SSL certificates, and that's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. And every website, whether you're collecting data or you have e-commerce, should be encrypted. But 8 years ago, not every site was encrypted. So it was a big deal to kind of call that out. Please note you'll also need an SSL certificate for your domain name and to encrypt your data to accept payments. I think I would only put in a sentence like that now if it was e-commerce or a membership site and people were going to actually be making payments through the site. If it wasn't, I would just quietly install SSL, and I don't know if I would necessarily call that out. And then I have pricing. I always called out separate pricing for the plugins. The SSL certificate, about $70 a year to accept payments, encrypts your data. Yeah, we don't need that now. Back then, on her host, she did. Timeline extends the timeline payment schedule for the remaining amount due. Client is responsible for purchasing premium plugins and SSL certificate. I have actually really good language as we get more into this about making sure clients understand that they need to pay for those things. I cannot assume those costs. Some important things to note: all posts and pages will automatically be moved to the new website. This is necessary with the redesign to style pages and for search engine optimization purchases. You've stated you will move the directory listings, which makes this a cost and time effective project. However, with the ability to import and export listings, this will also simplify and save you time. I don't understand those two sentences. You've stated you will move the directory listings. I don't know. These two sentences to me contradict each other, because I remember spending hours moving directory listings, hundreds. She had hundreds of directory listings on the old site. Yeah, so this was an interesting one. I actually think this proposal is well written, but I just remember how the job went, and I don't know how the proposal could have been better or could have made the job better, because I was just out of my league programming wise, and I did not do the proper amount of research to understand what it was really going to take to build this site. So we got it done, but she ended up, I remember just how long ago was this? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, she emailed me because she had hired another programmer to rebuild the directory. So I know that what I built isn't even around anymore, and that doesn't surprise me at all. I didn't do a very good job. So, okay. August 1st, 2016. Oh yeah. So this is a tattoo artist who needed a website. And this is actually somebody that I've known for a long time, for many years. He knows my brother. And so, yeah, he got in touch with me. I think because he knew my brother and he knew that I was a web designer. And this job went really well. I think the job went well, but the client relationship part of this was a little weird. I don't know. I'm not going to do a good job explaining that. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me this weekend. I'm excited about the possibility of working together to build your website and help you launch your new endeavor. It was basically a side hustle for him. From our conversation, again, now I'm going to restate that I understand what it is that he's looking for. From our conversation, I understand that you need a website that combines your line of t-shirts and merchandise and also promotes, I think it was a band and its artwork. You're looking for a scaled back approach to a website that is much different from the site you envisioned 3 years ago. He had tried to get a website built 3 years ago. You want something that is clean and usable but still reflects the subject matter and communicates with its intended audience. This proposal includes the scenario we discussed with pricing and a timeline. So I made sure that during our initial meeting, we talked about pricing and timeline, and that they weren't getting that information for the first time in the proposal. So if talking about money is uncomfortable, you have to learn how to have those conversations immediately, because you don't work for free, I hope. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to discuss the proposal further. Oh yeah. We spoke briefly about the possibility of trading services in exchange for the website. I thought carefully about this since our conversation and have decided that I'd prefer to bill you for the work rather than trading services. Please let me know if this is a problem. Yeah, he proposed that, and there's nothing wrong with trading services. There is nothing wrong with that. He was a very, very talented tattoo artist, and but I wanted to get paid for my work. I didn't need another tattoo. So I said no. And I remember actually being like a little uncomfortable, but I was also like, Angela, you created a boundary, and that's okay. That's a good thing when you create boundaries. So here's where I sort of outline what it is that we're going to do. Again, I'm outlining the work to be done without giving away the strategy. So a semi-custom WordPress website uses a pre-made theme, but also has a custom homepage and reflects your branding throughout the site. In this scenario, I will select the pre-made theme. And that's very common in WordPress to use pre-made themes that that are kind of like a template that you can easily modify or customize. And I did that a lot. I mean, I built a lot of custom, like ground up WordPress themes, but also for these, like what I would consider kind of smaller jobs, I would also use like a pre-built theme and customize it. So the deliverables would be a style guide, a color scheme, picking new typography. He had a logo, so how are we using the logo? And then how do links and buttons look? Those are all things that would go in a style guide. And again, a homepage mock-up, so compelling calls to action, right? Artwork, he wanted a newsletter sign up, and I suggested MailChimp. How do the social media icons look? In strong branding, he wanted really strong branding. Install WordPress on a hosting provider. And then I'm doing theme installation, I'm customizing the theme for branding, and I'm adding content for the homepage and about pages. And this is what I would do to help clients with content. And believe me, they're going to need help with content. I would interview them and record them to create the content. So just on my phone, I would interview them for 10 or 15 minutes, get them to talk about their business. What's their mission? What are their goals? What are they trying to do with this website? And then I would go home and type that up and literally just transcribe the conversation. And then I could use the language. I could use their words, their language to create content for a design. I needed to do that in order to build websites. I needed that process, and I needed a real content in order to design a layout. The functionality included will be a contact form with CAPTCHA for spam prevention, a third-party plugin for commenting and spam prevention. That sounds like a repeated phrase. So he was also setting up an e-commerce site, but he didn't want me to build an e-commerce site. He was going to use an e-commerce site like Shopify or something. It wasn't Shopify, it was something else. I don't remember what it was. So I'm basically restating how we're going to integrate the website with what he eventually decides to use for e-commerce. So you need an e-commerce solution, and we'll likely use blank to set up your store. To integrate with the website, we'll add a link in the main navigation to the store and also create compelling calls to action throughout the site to drive traffic to the store. And that's all you need to do. If you're building a website, I personally don't think you need to integrate e-commerce with a website. They can be two separate things. Just put the link to the e-commerce site in the navigation, and when they click that link, it opens a new tab. Just create calls to action or links throughout the site, and then use those calls to action to open the e-commerce site in a new tab. They don't literally have to be integrated. And then I would explain sometimes the process for development. So all development will take place on my servers. Upon approval, I will migrate and launch the site on your hosting account at hosting company. So I have my own servers, right? So I would go out to DigitalOcean, or I think at one point I was using GoDaddy, and I would deploy a staging site someplace that is completely separate from their server. And then once they approve the final work, then I would deploy it on their server. And so here's where I would get a lot more detailed with my timeline. We discussed a timeline for project completion on or before September 1st, 2016. My schedule has changed since we last discussed this, which extends that date by about 11 days. I am proposing the following timeline. And so about a week for the proposal, about a week for the style guide and content creation, then another week for a mock-up. And then apparently I was building this website in 6 days. That's crazy. 2 weeks, August 22nd to September 4th. My timelines were pretty tight. When I was looking at these proposals, I was like, wow, Angela. And then I would allow about a week for quality control, revisions, and launch. And I mean, hey, I got it done. And I only charged him $12.50. He had paid me back in 2013 to start working on this site, and then he kind of disappeared. So this was a credit. This was a credit from our previous conversation 3 years earlier. And then I charged him an extra $12.50, so a total of $1,500. Oh, wait a second. Project total $1,250. He had given me $250 back in 2013. So remaining amount $1,000. Payment terms $500 the week of August 15th upon receipt of the homepage mockup. $500 the week of September 5th upon completion and launch. And you really have to decide for yourself. Are you going to wait to launch a site until you get the final payment? Or are you going to wait and ask for the final payment after the site has been launched? You have to decide for yourself which you're going to do. I never waited until after the site was launched. Only one time I did that with a very, very difficult client who, after I launched the site, still didn't pay me for like 2 weeks. So I took the site down and I just waited to see if he noticed, and he definitely noticed. And I was scared shitless, but he emailed me and he was just like, oh, I guess you really want to get paid, huh? And I said, yeah, I do. I'll put the site back up and then you need to pay my invoice within 24 hours or I'm taking the site down again. So you have to decide for yourself what you're going to do. That was what I did. And with the exception of one time, I never had a problem. So let's go to the next one. So this is a job that I did. This is a job that I did with a partner, a content creator that I had been working with. So she actually wrote this proposal. I didn't, but she did a pretty good job like following my format, my template. So thank you for inviting us to propose a redesign for your website. We're thrilled about the possibility of working with you. From our conversation, we understand, again, the key words. You're looking for a modern, clean, parallax website that's an online gallery for your unique products. So she was an artist, but this wasn't an e-commerce website. She actually had a storefront and she didn't want to sell online. She just needed a great website for her products and to get foot traffic in the door. At this point, you're not looking for an e-commerce site, but you would like a site that interfaces with, I think it was eBay or Etsy, but I don't remember. You need a good contact form and great photography. You're open to a fresh look at your logo and color palette. You'd like to create some content for the site that describes your process. You'd like to build an ongoing relationship with a local web designer with a focus on communication and collaboration. We're confident we can provide solutions to meet all these needs. Yeah, this gal was really, really nice, and she was a very talented artist. I definitely like working with her. I will say though, my business relationship and my friendship with this particular content creator, which we had been working together for a couple of years at this point, was deteriorating. And this was the last job we worked on together. And so that made this job difficult, but the client was not difficult. The site was a lot of fun to build. I remember building it and liking it. I just remember my relationship with the person who was doing like the project management and the writing and things like that, it was on the rocks and it was really stressful and disappointing. So that's why I don't have good feelings about this project, unfortunately, because the site was nice. So here we've built a 3-tiered proposal at different price points for your consideration. The difference between the tiers includes the amount of unique content and the customization level you're looking for. We've also included ongoing services. I'm glad this has finally come up. A website maintenance package and a mini content ecosystem, including blog, video, and social media focusing on topics generated by SEO keyword research. We're happy to customize a solution that works for your needs and your budget. We encourage our clients to be as self-sufficient as possible. We started using this language as well. We encourage our clients to be as self-sufficient as possible in managing the administrative tasks associated with their website. This prevents any so-called hostage situations in which we control the master credentials for platforms that maintain the integrity of your site. This means that we will recommend and facilitate third-party services like hosting accounts, SSL certifications or certificates, and premium plugins. But we will ask you to arrange payment for them separately. We'll walk you through these processes as they arise. We look forward to discussing further at your convenience. I cannot tell you how important that is. I started including that language because I had not a lot, less than a handful of people over the years contact me because they needed help regaining control of their website because they were in a dispute with the web developer who locked them out of everything, locked them out of their hosting. They didn't own their domain. They changed all the usernames and passwords on the back end if it was WordPress. And a couple of times I was able to get the site back because they did still have like FTP access. So I could get in and download. If I could get into the back end of the WordPress site, or into the database, I could usually get the site back for them. One time I couldn't. So I started including language like this and making sure that clients were always the owner of their hosting, the owner of their domain name, the owner of their premium plugins, which is very popular and common in WordPress. That I just didn't feel like that was a way to resolve disputes, holding people hostage. Here's the other thing, and I experienced this very early in my freelancing career. If you buy the domain name and you pay for the hosting and you start paying for the software or the themes, what if they walk away and ghost you and disappear? That happens. Then you own all of those things and you have no way to get your money back because they can just walk away. So I would encourage you to always include language in your proposals, making it very clear that they are responsible for software or any of these additional costs. They need to own those things and they need to be responsible for them. Protect yourself. And so here are the options that we proposed. A semi-custom website only, a semi-custom website plus SEO and content, a fully custom website plus strategy plus SEO and content. And of course, these services, we offered these services because I wasn't doing it all myself, right? I had a partner who we worked on these things together. And I have to tell you, I don't remember which of these we did. I think it must have been option 2, because I do remember doing like, a WordPress, I used the Genesis framework for a while in WordPress, which makes it very, very easy to make custom websites on top of a framework. So I want to say that this was probably option 2, because I do remember the gal I was working with doing some SEO and content, and I do remember doing like the semi-custom design. And I would remember if I had done the fully custom build, and I know I didn't. But look at these prices. These prices are insane. Fully custom website plus strategy plus SEO plus content, $7,000. That's wild. That's wild that we were charging those prices. And then always try to sell ongoing services. Always offer it. You would be really surprised at who takes you up on that. Mini content ecosystems. Each mini content ecosystem focuses on a theme based on an SEO keyword or phrase we've identified from SEO keyword research. I'll do a short interview with you about a probably topic recently created, or topic or product recently created on camera, and craft the following useful actionable content assets from it. A blog post, a 2-minute informal vlog interview with intro and outro, 5 promotional social media posts. And so my friend who did content, she would do this. And she was kind of new to like the SEO game, but she was actually getting pretty good at it. And a lot of her business were these kind of mini content ecosystems, she called them. And then this was my part, the ongoing website maintenance package. Continued monitoring of SEO and URL redirects, as well as updated plugins, WordPress and theme files, continuous backups of database and theme files, annual rewrite of title tags and description, $250 a month. So yeah, this was I enjoyed building the site, but it was sort of the end of a friendship and a business relationship, and for that reason it was a little sad. So okay, moving on. So August 10th, 2016. So this was, I don't do this a lot, but I did it for this particular person. This is somebody who just wanted to hire me to do search engine optimization. And you'll see why, because there are incredible opportunities just through having a good, well-built semantic website with title tags and descriptions to help people with SEO. And we'll get into it here and you'll see how bad this one was. Thank you for inviting me to propose a search engine optimization solution for your website. I'm excited about the possibility of working with you to grow this brand online. From our correspondence, I understand that this business has a website but isn't receiving leads from internet or Google search results. I'm confident I would not put sentences like this in a proposal, even if it was true. I'm confident I can provide solutions to this problem. I've built a proposal that addresses the search engine optimization and keyword research you're looking for. I've also included additional services for website content. I'm happy to customize a solution that works for your needs and your budget. SEO services do not include reputation management services. This is so important that if you're helping with SEO, that you make this distinction, because search engine optimization for a website and reputation management are not the same thing. Reputation management is, in my opinion, wildly unpredictable and difficult. And I've tried to help people with that before, and I won't do it. I won't do it. So make sure that you understand that you're not doing that and that you can't help people with that unless you do, but I don't and I won't. My approach to SEO is organic and website focused, and I can't guarantee the results of any search engine optimization services. SEO is a long game that requires smart, thoughtful choices. When you have the combination of a well-optimized and responsive website, keyword-rich content, and a strong social media presence, it's generally understood that your SEO efforts will be successful. I don't know if I would include this sentence, but I believe this. I believe this to be true. I encourage my clients to be as self-sufficient as possible in managing the administrative tasks associated with their website. So again, I used this paragraph over and over again in many proposals. This prevents any so-called hostage situations in which I control the master credentials for platforms that maintain the integrity of the site. Okay, I'll walk you through these processes as they arise. I look forward to discussing further. Okay. Preliminary research. This is why I agreed to do this job. My initial research for this website shows the following. Only one of 15 possible pages are indexed in Google. The site does not appear to be managed in Google Webmaster Tools. The site does have Google Analytics enabled with a tracking code. Page title tags and descriptions aren't unique, and the website is not mobile responsive. And the domain name isn't encrypted with an SSL certificate. So these things alone have a huge impact on search engine optimization. Being responsive, unique title tags and descriptions, an encrypted domain. These things are huge. These are the starting point for search engine optimization. I can't stress that enough. A Google search for, and I think it was the name of the business, returns a completely different name of a completely different was it a different business? I don't know. It returned a completely different phrase or name, and then when I clicked on it, it was a 404. It was an error page. So they had one result for the name of their business. When you click that link, it was a 404. Now, this business did have a really strong social media presence on Facebook. They had reviews, but the Facebook page was not verified, but it did have a unique URL. And they did have a Google local business page. Again, reviews were enabled, the page was verified, but this did not have a unique URL. And I said here, branding seems inconsistent, especially among social media profiles and URLs or domain names. So basic SEO package, build a sitemap, submit the sitemap to Google Webmaster Tools, write unique title tags and descriptions for 15 pages, and submit each page to Google for immediate indexing. So, look, literally that's what they needed. So keyword research. I will do keyword research for primary long-form keywords based on the current website's content, their location, and local competition. I will do keyword research for ancillary keywords based on current website's content, their location, and local competition. And by the way, there are apps and websites where you can do this. And a lot of them, there's some free ones. I can't off the top of my head think of the names, but I'll make sure I link some down in the description. Even if you pay a modest amount to do some keyword research for title tags and descriptions, you can really do a lot of good for a website, especially one in this much trouble. I will write 100 to 150 words of content for the homepage, which currently has no content. Implemented keyword recommendations and using best practices for a keyword to content ratio of 1 to 2%, which means if you do keyword research, don't stuff your content full of keywords. It should be about 1 to 2% of the overall content. And the homepage didn't have any content on it at all. I think it was just filled with images. Content for inner pages, and they didn't actually take me up on this. I mean, most of the things in this proposal, we didn't do, and I don't remember why. I remember doing a sitemap, updating the title tags and descriptions, and submitting everything to Google, but I don't remember doing any of these other things. So either I didn't do them or I just don't remember, but I don't think I did. But here's what I was offering to do. I will interview the primary stakeholders of this business and create 500 to 700 words of content to be used throughout the remaining 14 inner pages of the website. Content will include keyword research. Services to consider: an SSL certificate, because again, at the time you had to buy those through your hosting, and a mobile responsive WordPress website, because of course I'm going to try to upsell them on building a new website. So I did help, like I said, with just very, very basic SEO. Yeah, and so I don't think that I even would, when I first saw this, I was like, really, I did this? But then reading through this, I'm like, well, of course I did this because the site is a dumpster fire. It just needs some basic help here, and we could at least get it indexed in Google. So yeah, I don't remember what all ended up happening with this. I just remember doing some of the basic stuff. So, okay, on to the next one. Let's see here. Okay, so membership and front end okay, so this was a WordPress website that just needed additional functionality, and the owner of this website was also a podcaster, and she wanted to create a premium feed of the current podcast and then also have a membership portion of her website that goes along with that premium feed. So you're going to see some details in here that may not be accurate today related to podcasting and podcasting feeds. So just take that into account. I mean, this is 2016. This is almost 9 years ago. So things could definitely be different today. But at the time, this was the information. This is what we had to work with. So thank you for inviting me to propose a membership solution for your website. What follows are the details for your project that we discussed. And again, another website without an SSL certificate. And if she was going to have a membership site where she accepted payments, we had to get an SSL certificate on there and encrypt that traffic. You will need an SSL certificate to accept payments on your website. You should be able to purchase and install an SSL through your hosting provider. I recommend S2 Members plugin for WordPress to handle user membership part of your project. I think the free version would work very well for you, but the paid version has additional features you might like to have and is a one-time purchase. You can review the plugin here. And that plugin goes on sale all the time. It is a good plugin. It's worth the money if you decide to buy it. The S2 Members plugin makes it very easy to restrict content for users, whether they are free or paid members. I recommend that you create at least 2. So again, I did go a little bit into the strategy here. And the reason I did that is because this is somebody I had known for a really long time. And we did end up doing most of these things for her site. What also ended up happening though is in membership sites, e-commerce sites, directory sites, anything where you have different tiers of memberships, they can be tricky because now you are deciding which pages on those sites, which people can see. And it is more complex than you think it's going to be. And once we got into it and started building, I had a ton of questions for her. I remember working on this and thinking, oh, we need to decide this. We need to decide this. What about this? And she just ended up not making decisions that I needed her to make. So only about half of this ended up getting implemented. So again, a lot of strategy here about what I thought she should do. I will install a plugin for users to register, log in, and manage their profile on the front end. This means access to the back end will be restricted for anyone who isn't an administrator. That's standard. This plugin also comes with the ability to create custom emails for registration. So there's no strategy. I'm not really giving away the roadmap there because I'm not saying what plugin it is. And believe me, those plugins have some complexity. So at this point, I did do a good job just saying we will use a plugin, but I'm not telling you what plugin or how to do it. I recommend you use PayPal to collect payments from premium members. PayPal is the default payment gateway that comes with the S2 Members plugin. I'll make sure you have a complete walkthrough of the back end of your website so you can comfortably manage your users and premium content. I mentioned that you might consider switching to SoundCloud for your podcast hosting. The player is easy to embed in your blog posts, and SoundCloud has become a podcast industry standard. Premium episodes, this is the part that I'm not sure about today. Premium episodes cannot be excluded from your podcast feed, so I recommend having 2 feeds or 2 accounts. One is public and available in iTunes. The second is private and only available on your website. This means premium users will only have access to premium content on your website. And I think that's different now. I think that you can make things you can separate a feed, because I feel like I see that all the time in podcasts, but I don't know how that works. I haven't looked into it, but 9 years ago, this was the truth. Plugin, she had a lot of plugins on this site also. So plugin, audit, and recommendation. I will review your plugins and remove the ones you don't need. What I've outlined is straightforward and easily achievable. Again, easily achievable. Don't use that language. Before we proceed, you need to make some decisions about the types of memberships, the types of content, and how you want to proceed with premium episodes that cannot be included in your public podcast feed. I can install the plugins and configure their settings in a few days, then teach you to manage the functionality. We'll also need to test several scenarios to make sure every situation is considered and how the site will respond. And this is where I said that once I got into it, I realized through this sort of testing scenarios that I needed her to make more decisions that she didn't make. So we did end up implementing some of this, but not as much as she wanted because I couldn't get her to make final decisions. So it is what it is. But I did get this job done. I mean, the job did get done. And she did pay me. There were just additional things. And if she doesn't respond or answer questions, like that's her problem, not my problem. I still did everything that I said that I would do. So that's that. Okay. So this is March 2nd, 2017. Oh yes. Okay, yes, I do remember this one. So this is a physician in a doctor's office, and he had a line of supplements that he was selling. So this was an e-commerce site, and this site, this build went great. He's still a client. I still talk to him a couple of times a year. He doesn't pay me for regular monthly maintenance. He just calls me up and lets me know when he needs something. About once a year, I charge him a couple $100 and I update his server. Otherwise, him and his wife run the back end and he sells his supplements. And this is still a great little website. This is also a situation where he had mock-ups. So he had a good friend who is a well-known graphic designer, not specifically a web designer, but still a good, well-respected, good graphic designer who had done all of the mock-ups. And he could not find an agency that would just build the mock-ups that he had. Everybody wanted to change things or do things or just wouldn't look at the mock-ups at all. And I was the first person to look at the mock-ups and be like, yeah, I can do that. And it was not a difficult site to build at all. In fact, I remember building it and just enjoying the process of building something that I didn't have to design. It was a fun, interesting challenge, and we got it done. It turned out really, really well. I used WooCommerce. It was a WordPress website. I used WooCommerce, which is great for e-commerce integration. And so again, I say here, I understand that your current website needs to be redesigned to include e-commerce for both retail and wholesale clients. In addition, your wholesale clients will have membership privileges for access to private wholesale pricing. This means we'll create 2 versions of each product for each pricing type. And I did implement memberships on the back end, but it ended up being very straightforward for him. So thank goodness. Your designers providing mockups for the homepage, inner pages, archive, and product pages, as well as a color palette and typography specifications. I will provide mockups for mobile devices and single product pages. It's understood that you will provide content and product images. It was beautiful. It was a great arrangement. I love when somebody can just give me designs and I don't have to do that part myself. So custom website redesign with e-commerce, mockups for mobile and single product pages, custom WordPress development, e-commerce integration with WooCommerce. We were going to use Zapier to connect the back end of the website with his like bookkeeping software, but I think we ended up not doing this. I think he changed his mind. He hadn't actually signed up for I think the bookkeeping software he used didn't integrate with Zapier, so we were thinking he would switch, and it just didn't work out. Stamps.com integration to verify shipping addresses and print labels. And again, WooCommerce and WordPress have plugins to handle that on the back end. This requires a Stamps.com subscription for $15.99 a month, plus the cost of shipping. And then he could optionally purchase a Stamps.com shipping label printer. This is also a plugin, but it was worth mentioning that he was going to need the USPS API shipping method integration to calculate the shipping rates in the US by weight or size during customer checkout. Stripe set up an integration for checkout. Okay, so we were initially going to use Stripe, and as soon as we got the site set up, within maybe 2 or 3 days of launch, Stripe took down his account, because it was part of the Stripe terms of service that they don't allow e-commerce for supplements. They only allowed e-commerce for pharmaceuticals that were FDA approved. And of course, supplements are not FDA approved in the United States. And that was a part of the Stripe terms of service that I had no idea about. So suddenly this site is up and he's telling everybody about it, and his clients are logging in and purchasing supplements, and the payment gateway, the account is canceled. It's not down, it's canceled. So we quickly pivoted to PayPal, which luckily their terms of service does allow supplements and non-FDA approved pharmaceuticals. And I was able to call PayPal and confirm with them that we weren't going to violate their terms of service. So that was an excellent lesson for me, that if you are dealing with somebody who is selling those types of products, supplements, whatever, make sure that it is part of the terms of service of the payment gateway, Stripe versus PayPal or whoever else you want to use, that they allow that. So that was a good lesson. And of course, an SSL certificate to encrypt the website, server setup and migration launch, because he had an old website, so technically we were doing a migration too. A VPN, making sure that people are, not on some little $6 a month shared hosting. And this was within maybe a year or two of me using DigitalOcean, making sure that they're on a good private server to get the resources they need for that type of traffic. Organic search engine optimization. And then I always said that I would do 30 days of support with training as needed. And so I broke this down into just the cost of the website and then the additional membership functionality. And he did want the membership functionality, but I broke down cost-wise to at least give him those options. And this membership functionality, either maybe I was just getting good at it by this time because I'd had a couple of fails. Well, one fail, one semi-fail, and then one apparently I got right, because I don't remember having any trouble with this. And then here are the project terms. So the total cost, $10,000. Again, a time frame, 120 days is 4 months. I mean, we didn't have any problem getting this site done on time. So this was a reasonable amount of time. I was always a 50-50, so I took 50% up front, 50% once we were done. And This is important language. A deposit secures your place on my calendar. Completion is upon approval and launch. If you decide to proceed with my services, I'll send you an electronic invoice for the first payment to begin work. And then what are the next steps? So like what do we do once we decide to move forward? Schedule a kickoff meeting where you can get together and walk through a demo. Oh, I remember this now. We did a kickoff meeting and I basically walked him through a demo e-commerce website where I just set up like a kind of a plain WordPress site with WooCommerce and talked about what that functionality looks like what the process is, what it looks like to check out. We'll discuss how orders are placed, how shipping and tax are calculated, and the process you'll follow to track orders and notify customers when their orders are completed and shipped. I'll create a detailed scope of work and send you a copy for approval. The scope of work includes the project. See, and then I would wait until the scope to do the timeline, the deliverables, the written account of project functionality. I think the reason I started waiting to do that is because I would send off a proposal with a timeline and then I wouldn't hear from them for a couple of weeks or maybe a month or more. I couldn't stick to the timeline that I put in the proposal. I mean, I would give them an idea of what the timing would be, but until they actually pay me, I'm not putting it on the calendar. So if I put a timeline in the proposal and then you wait a month to actually decide to hire me, I can't stick to the original timeline anymore. So I remember that coming up a couple of times. The scope of work would include the updated timeline, the deliverables, and then a written account of project functionality. So I would sort of write in narrative form what the process would be like for an e-commerce site. I mean, we all know what it's like to buy something online, but until you've actually built a site like that yourself, you have to understand. I would write it out in narrative form so they understood if you click this, this happens, and then your user goes here and your user can expect this, or they get this email, or how does a user track their order, things like that. And then again, I have this language in here about, not being a hostage, right? And then the cost for premium WordPress plugins and extensions are included in the project cost. A license for premium plugins entitles you to 1 year of support and updates. At the end of this term, you'll be asked to assume the cost to renew the licenses. I'll walk you through these processes as they arise. Oh, interesting. I don't remember doing this. The cost for premium WordPress plugins and extensions are included in the project cost. So apparently with this client, I went ahead and bought the plugins and then told him he had to assume the cost. I don't remember doing that. I don't know if I would advise that, but I don't remember doing that. So apparently it wasn't a problem. For the most part, I think that can be negotiated, right? You guys can decide amongst yourselves who's going to pay for what, as long as it's out in the open and you're both agreeing to it. So on to the next one. So I have to refreshing my memory. Oh yes, okay. I do remember this one. So this is one of those jobs that just didn't go well. And I don't think any amount of documentation on either my part or the part of this particular client could have helped the situation, because it was just one of those projects that sort of felt doomed from the beginning. We just never I started out really, really liking this lady, and then towards the end, I just couldn't stand her. And I don't think she liked me very much either. I couldn't get anything right. It was constant misunderstandings, no matter how much documentation. It just didn't go well. But let's at least go through this. So this is another directory website. Are we seeing a theme here? Directories and memberships. People really like directory and membership websites. You sent me 4 documents outlining 3 proposed phases of the work you'd like done, as well as the functionality you want implemented. After our conversation, we determined the phases could be altered as follows. So again, use a pre-made Genesis theme to build the website and blog, implement branding, colors, and typography, assist with page creation and styling as needed, transfer blog content from an old site to a new website domain. This is really important if you're helping with SEO or doing a redesign. We need 301 redirects for the domain change because it's a redesign on a new domain. We have to make sure that we are adding Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics tracking code. Always important, even if you're not an SEO person, make sure you're at least doing some basic things like that. Phase 2, install WooCommerce and review the site to make sure appropriate styles are in place to build the marketplace. Build custom directory listing functionality. Oof, I should never have agreed to that, because that was really, it was the directory that I couldn't get right. So again, I was a little bit in over my head, but also it was like, no matter how much each of us, myself and the client, documented or outlined the process, we could just never get on the same page. Like every time I thought we were agreeing about the work to be done, I would go build it and it would be wrong. Or she would say, well, that's not what I agreed to. And at the end, there were entire pieces of functionality that she thought I was going to build. And I would say, well, this is not in the scope of work. I'm not building that. It's not in the scope of work. And she would say, well, but I mentioned it. We talked about it. I said I wanted it. Yeah, so this was a really, really tough, this was a really, really tough client and a tough project to work on. And I mean, I did the work that I agreed to do and she did pay me, but she never considered this site done. And I don't think this site exists at all anymore. So I do have a timeline here. And again, this timeline was way too tight. I proposed 12 weeks. It took months. It took months to get the incomplete work done. She did end up paying me. She did end up paying me because she at least acknowledged that I was doing work. But in the end, it just didn't, the site did not meet her expectations. And I feel like no matter what I did, I just never got it right. It was, have you ever met a person where you have a conversation and you verbally or in writing, you agree to what is going to get done. You have an agreement on what the plan is, and then you go and do it, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong every time. That's what this project was like. So yeah, this was a tough one. This was a tough one. Okay. This was an easy one. This was a good one, actually. July 25th, 2017. So this was a brand new build. And this is somebody who was starting, who was very young, and they were building a consulting business. And this actually went really, really good. This whole project went really well, really well. So it's understood you're looking for a WordPress website to sell your one-on-one consulting services with a blank audience looking for guidance during their blank. The website you showed me, and I loved that when people would show me other websites as examples of functionality that they liked, is a good example of the direction you want to take your website. The website should demonstrate your ability to blank and help them blank. You also want a website that will grow with your business, including the ability to add testimonials from clients who have benefited from your services. This website will rely on 4 important pieces of functionality. So again, some roadmap here without giving away all the strategy. The ability to collect payments in advance of services being provided. This will rely on clearly defined packages for each level of pricing. The ability to display a calendar and allow users to book time for a consultation. We should discuss whether this functionality is for all users prior to paying for services, or whether you'll allow users who have already paid to book time. The ability to create detailed forms to survey users prior to meeting with them. The ability to easily create pages and edit content, including adding testimonials as you get them. So making sure that I'm providing all of those things for him to maintain the site. So content, the client will write the content for the site and Angela will act as a copy editor. If you need help with copywriting, please let me know and I can provide a separate estimate for copywriting services. The pages we discussed are a home page, about page, a questionnaire, a calendar, a process. So he needs a page to define his process, testimonials, and a contact page. And finally, as we discussed, videos should be used throughout the site to explain the service you provide. And I think I suggested just YouTube videos that could be embedded with iframes. Branding. I will provide branding for the website that includes a web-optimized logo files you can use for print design assets, a style guide including color scheme and typography, and image sourcing. I will provide 10 stock images. And I think I, at the time, was signed up for Adobe stock. Third-party applications. This is my standard hostage language. And then here was the timeline. So 10 days in August for a style guide, typography, logo, images, color scheme. And then we had a time set aside, about 10 days for mock-ups, homepage, testimonials, general page template, and then about 2 weeks for the website build, and then a launch on October 1st. And I don't remember having any problem with this site. I remember this build going really, really well, not having any issues whatsoever. 50-50, a deposit, let me know if you have questions. So this went really well. This was a great client. I mean, I guess what I'm realizing now that I'm kind of taking this trip down memory lane and looking at some of these things is, yes, you have to write good proposals. They have to be clear. They have to be detailed. You have to let clients, prospective clients, know that you know what you're doing, and you have to tell them what you're going to do without giving away the entire strategy of what you're doing. Yes, that's important. You need to figure out how to do that. But sometimes it doesn't matter how well you do that. Sometimes it's just a good client or it's just a shitty client. There's no way around it. And you're not always going to know until you're in it and you're doing it. As you get more experience, you will get a better understanding of who is going to be good to work with. But sometimes even then, they could be great initially and then be really difficult to work with. You just never know. It's like any relationship, right? Things can always start out good and then go sour in any situation. That's just how life works. I feel like I've definitely had more good than bad, but the bad stick out. So when I think about my experience freelancing, it's easy for me to say like, oh, I don't ever want to have to do that again. But now looking at all these proposals, I'm like, wow, actually, I completely forgot about that job. And I probably forgot about it because it was a great job with no issues. And I got it done quickly and easily, and the client was happy. So I remember the bad ones, not all the good ones, I guess. This is actually the same client. So he also wanted business cards because I had done all of his branding for him. I did the logo, the color palette, and he loved that. And he wanted new business cards. So I designed business cards and then I did a proposal. So I was very clear about what I would do, the front and back business card design, implementing a new logo and typography, use the new branding colors, 2 business card mock-ups to choose from, up to 3 revisions of your chosen design as needed. And then I gave him printing options. 40, if you need to get printing done, there are so many great options out there. I personally love 48-hour print. Moo.com is also an excellent choice. They're a little more premium. And then I gave him the option of a local printer, and unfortunately they are no longer, Printer at Press is no longer in business. They did not survive the pandemic, which I think is so sad because I really, really loved working with her. And I think he ended up choosing moo.com because he got some kind of like really nice luxe letterpress style business cards. But 48-hour print and moo.com are both excellent printers. I am not affiliated with them, but I've used them both. They're really great. Yeah, and then I think I charged him $250 for the design, and then I paid, so I charged him for the design, and then I placed the order and did all the things to get, because it's a little bit involved if you're doing print services online, like with the design files and approving the designs. So I did all of that and I paid for the business cards. And then when the business cards came in and he came to pick them up, then I gave him one big invoice for everything at the end. So again, I think stuff like that's negotiable. And if you're working with a client that you trust and is good to work with, I think that's fine. Once the design is complete and finalized, I'll arrange for all printing and delivery. The final cost of printing will be added to my invoice. Yeah, and this job went really well. So this is a good example of a non-web related proposal. Okay, this was somebody who found me on Craigslist and just had a very sad WordPress website. They did not want a redesign. They just needed to make some improvements to the site. And I actually worked on a lot of WordPress websites like this. People who just were not ready or couldn't afford to do the full redesign process. They just needed to fix up what they had. And I think that's fine. That's actually a great way to make extra money. So I understand that your current website needs some updating. Specifically, the following are some of the things you pointed out when we spoke. You want additional pages for the customers only area of the site. So this person already had memberships implemented and the memberships were fine. The login button needs to be restored. You'd like to add a survey. The results will be emailed to a specified recipient. And so when this type of thing you could just do with like a contact form, right? You'd like the ability to add videos to the homepage slider. We agreed videos hosted on YouTube or Vimeo are the best way to achieve this. And then these were, you know, my suggested improvements after getting a good look at the site. Your current WordPress theme isn't mobile responsive. I can update that for you if you're interested. And they didn't take me up on that, but that's okay. You can offer. All of your plugins and WordPress core software should be updated. Very common. I'll install a small script to automatically update software. This improves your security and overall health of your website. WordPress does this by default now. So this is part of WordPress core that they do more automatic updates, but at the time I could put in a script to do that. I also was going to make a complete backup of their website, which is a smart thing. The admin area of your site is encrypted with an SSL certificate, but the front end of your site is not. Is this intentional? If it's a bug, I'd like to fix this. And I think I did fix that. I think he had an SSL certificate and it wasn't configured correctly and it was only working on the back end. And then the footer has a fixed copyright date of 2013. I'll make this dynamic so it updates to the correct year automatically. I mean, this was what, 2017? Yeah, so that's a good idea. So I gave him two options. Cost $750 without mobile responsive coding, or $1,000. I was going to charge him $250 to make his site responsive. Did I though? See, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if I did. I do remember this job. It's hard to remember details though. I might have done it. I might have been able to do this, but I can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. Time frame, 3 weeks, November 30th to December 21st, 50/50. In order to proceed with work, I need login credentials to your server and database. Before any work commences, I always take a complete backup of all theme and database files. This allows me to work on a private server with minimal disruption to the live site. You will also have a chance to approve all aesthetic changes prior to merging them with the live site. Yeah, because this was a live website that we were making updates to, and you should not ever you shouldn't do this type of work to a live site. So, and it's also a good idea to make sure that you have backup. So I made a complete backup of the site. I installed everything on a staging site. I did all of the work and then I sent him a link so he could go look at the work and make sure. And see, now that I'm thinking of it, I think I did make it responsive. I think I did, because I'm thinking that I did, because I think it was a pretty straightforward site. So I don't think it was that hard to make it responsive. But you know, here's the thing, this job went great. These guys were great to work with. They were easy to work with. I was able to do everything that they wanted for them. So I saw this proposal and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. And I forget about things like this because the job is so easy. All right, on to the next one. So I do remember this one, and I'm telling you now, I took this job because I was broke and I needed the money. And this is at the end of 2017. This is before I ended up going back to work. In fact, I got my job at the University of St. Thomas in February 2018 is when I started. And I started applying for jobs right around New Year's. So I remember not wanting to take really any more big projects because I was looking for a job, but I took this because I needed the money and because I knew it would only last about 30 days and it was no development work. What they really needed was somebody to just install a page builder on the back end of their website and help them design pages. They had all these pages. It was a set of brothers who had rebuilt this site and they just needed help with page builds. So that's what we did. So I made sure that I, was restating that I understood what they needed. They had 40 to 50 pages that needed to be created and styled. I was going to create a sitemap of the pages and the URLs that correspond. I think must have had a slide deck or a PowerPoint presentation. And obviously then it was something to go back and, if you're styling 40 or 50 pages, you have to make sure that you have a list to make sure that you're getting everything done. So I'm sure that's why I did that. Create each page as specified by the sitemap. Copy editing as needed for styling. This is to make the content as succinct as possible where appropriate. They needed help finding logos and SVGs or icons. So I often use the Noun project for that. we were using this plugin called the WPBakery Page Builder, which is a very popular WordPress plugin for drag and drop and designing pages. And then I must have done some styling via the theme and with CSS. And again, I only charged them about $1,500, but I don't remember this being, I remember this being one of the last jobs, not the last job I did, but one of the last jobs that I did. And I don't remember really having any problems with this job either. And I have this paragraph, in instances where there may be a need for programming or additional functionality that falls outside the scope of this project, I'll bring those issues to your attention and we'll discuss the time, cost, and urgency to proceed. So again, just some good generic language that says, hey, if I notice anything that I think needs attention, I'm going to tell you about it and let you know how much it costs to take care of it and whether or not it's basically a critical item. So, okay. So this job, January 28th, 2018. I think this was the last job that I took on before because I started at St. Thomas in February 2018. So this was the last job I took. And this person was somebody that I met at the dog park. This was one of my clients that I met at the dog park. And this is also a site that I still continue to manage today and a client that I still really enjoy working with, which I'm sure is why I decided to take this job so close to getting my full-time job. And again, I didn't have any trouble, any issues at all getting this site built. This client was so nice to work with. The site was easy to build. He was very prepared. He was like an executive who was retiring and building a consulting business. And he was just really, really organized and knew what he wanted, which made it so easy to build this site for him. So thank you for asking me to review your materials and for discussing your new business with me. It's understood that you'd like a WordPress website similar to, and I think he had shown me other sites that he liked. Each of these sites has a professional look and feel with a clean color palette, graphics, and conceptual images. These sites also have prominent lead capture forms on the home page and all inner pages. And I just sort of went through each page because he was very clear about the pages that he wanted. So I went through each page and what I thought each page could do, what they should look like, basically making sure that I'm telling him, hey, I understand that this is what you're asking for. So here, I'm laying it all out. Here's a list. So we both know that I'm going to give you exactly what you're asking for. And so the deliverables, because I did do the branding, were a style guide to define the branding, a logo, a color scheme, imagery. Again, I was going to provide stock photos, typography, UI elements like buttons. He wanted a chart graphic for one of the inner pages. So I went ahead and made the chart for him. And then I did a homepage mock-up to give him an idea of what the overall look and feel for the site would be. Also defines the header and footer, and it shows how the homepage is styled. It would be a WordPress website build. We'll do QA. We'll launch and do some organic search engine optimization, like setting up Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager. Well, now it's Google Tag Manager, and submitting to Google for indexing and title tags and descriptions. And then about the style guide. See how good I was getting at writing these proposals towards the end of my freelancing tenure? You're a new company, so we need to start with branding. I propose a simple logo and color scheme with one primary color and two accent colors. A style guide will tie the branding together with the website's user interface elements. These are things like buttons, links, typography, and images. About search engine optimization, I offer basic SEO services. After a site launch, I will ask Google to index your site and monitor its health in Google Search Console. I also start a Google Analytics account and add a tracking code to gather data about your visitors. Every project is built with standards compliant HTML5 code for semantic searchable website. Plugins. Most of the plugins I use are free. I will install the appropriate plugins needed to achieve the desired functionality of the website. I would, however, like to suggest you purchase a license for a premium plugin. And he did not take me up on this because he already knew that he wanted me to continue doing the maintenance of the site and just helping him with content. In fact, in 7 years, I don't think he's ever even logged into the site. He's set up as a user. He has never logged in because he pays me to take care of the site. And if he needs anything, he just lets me know. So we have a great working relationship. Final thoughts. So here's my hostage situation paragraph. The cost for premium WordPress plugins and extensions are not included in the project cost. A license for premium plugins generally entitles you to 1 year of supports and updates. I'll walk you through these processes as they arise. Training. I remember doing training, but again, he's never even logged into the site. And then here's where I added additional services. For a flat monthly fee of $250 per month, I will provide maintenance and updates for up to 5 hours per month of content edits. For any request that will take longer than 5 hours, I'll provide a separate estimate, because just because they pay you for monthly maintenance doesn't mean they own you for an entire month. It means that you're doing the job of keeping the site hosted and up to date and running smoothly. It doesn't mean that you will do unlimited revision or work on content for an undetermined amount of time. So make sure that you're deciding what you're willing to do for that monthly fee. If you decide to proceed with hosting charges, because I will provide hosting but not do all of the other things, which I don't really like doing. I kind of figured out that I didn't like doing that because I was still providing hosting on my servers, and how am I not doing updates? So I really don't do that anymore. It's more like I charge a monthly fee, you can take it or leave it. And because I don't want to be a hosting company, and I don't want to let sites that I build just sit on a server without being updated. If you decide to proceed with hosting services, charges will start 30 days after site launch. $25 per month or $250 per year, hosted on DigitalOcean, includes SSL, includes daily database backups. Yeah, so I don't really do hosting anymore. It's really these two things combined for $250 a month. And again, I only charged him $3,000, but I had no issues getting this site built, no issues with the branding. Everything got delivered and launched on time. It was a great final project to work on before I went back to work. Let's see here. So this was a proposal for one of my existing clients just to do maintenance. This was a website, a custom WordPress website that I had built. Well, this is 2018. I'm pretty sure it was 2 years previously. And they had that site on GoDaddy, like a little GoDaddy shared hosting account, and it wasn't performing very well. And I was like, hey, the reason this site isn't performing very well is because it's a big site. It has a lot of content. It was a redesign. She's a prolific blogger, the gal who owns this site. And I said, we need to get it off of shared hosting and onto a nice VPN or VPS, a virtual private server. So I proposed, she said, send me a proposal and let's move ahead with maintenance. So that's exactly what this is. It's just a proposal for maintenance. The maintenance package includes 2 to 3 hours of content updates per month, keep WordPress core software up to date, keep the plugins up to date, fix bugs as needed, install SSL, make sure it was also a WordPress multi-site, make sure that it's in version control. There were, we called the subsites like microsites. We do weekly, I actually do daily database backups on this site. Yeah, I actually do daily core backup sites and database backups. Hosting on DigitalOcean. She does have credentials via FTP, so she can get in if she has something she wants to put on the server. And she'll sometimes make these really big ebooks. Like the PDFs are huge, and she will occasionally put them in Dropbox, but sometimes she'll just put them in a folder on the server too, which is fine. And then if you decide to proceed with my hosting option, I'll create a username and password for access to the server and database. Well, really, she has access to the server via FTP. $250 a month. Yeah, she's been my client for about 9 years, since 2016 when I initially built the first site. So, and then this was, okay, so this is our last one. And this was actually my former manager, the person who hired me at the University of St. Thomas and then left a couple months after I started. She also had a WordPress website, and she just needed help running the site. She needed to set up, I think, some spam control because she had a blog and she's getting a lot of spam, and she just wanted like a little hand-holding lesson. I don't even have a price in here, so I don't even know if I charged her. I probably charged her $100. So this was the proposal. What follows is the lesson plan for our coaching session today. We've scheduled 45 minutes to work on the following. Akismet is a great plugin for WordPress if you're having a spam issue. They have a free version, but the paid version is also excellent. Discuss spam in general. Oh, this is not spelled correctly. There's actually a plugin called Discuss, but I don't think that's what we were doing. So I think literally I meant discuss spam in general and why it should be removed from your site. Add Google Analytics to your site via the Genesis theme options. Tour of the Genesis theme options, answer questions. I think she bought a WordPress theme, a Genesis theme on Etsy. That's what I think she did, and that's what she needed help with. I think this is a very good start towards making you more comfortable with your site. Yeah, I haven't talked to this gal in a really long time, but she's really nice. Well, she was my boss originally, and then she became a friend. So, and that's all. Wow, we got through all 15 of them. Holy cow. Wow, we got through all 15 of those proposals. I hope you found them insightful. I know that this is an incredibly long video, and I'll make sure that I have chapters down below. Yeah, check out the GitHub repository. If you are a freelancer or you want to start freelancing and you need help creating proposals, I think there's so much here for you to work with, and I'm happy to share it with you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Listen, I'm an open book. I'm here to share all the information that I have floating around in my tiny brain. I'm here to share it with you, so let me know. And do me a favor, if you found this video helpful, if you find this type of information helpful, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you. I think we have a lot of fun here. I live stream every Saturday and Sunday, and we have a good little crowd that hangs out in the chat. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.